We live? We are live. We are live. We've been given a thumbs up. And here we are, another fabulous show of Let's Talk About It Wednesday, right here at CCX Create in the city of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Brother, they cannot do this by themselves. They are welcome to donations. They are looking for new, exciting shows. So come on down and be a guest on this show, or come on down and be able to start your own show. But if you have any nickels and dimes in them pockets and them purses and pocketbooks, please feel free to share a few of those, and donate to CCX Create, as they allow us to be here each and every Wednesday to bring you news that you can use to better educate, empower, and enhance you, the community. Remember, this is a community platform that is community-based for your voice to be heard about topics and issues that impacts us on a daily basis.
Yes,
Brother
sir.
Joe, what's going on with you, man?
Oh, just enjoying life, my brother. Good day today, nice and sunny.
Indeed.
No complaints.
Indeed. Well, when you talk about the sun, we're looking at the extended forecast for about the next 5 days or so, and it's looking pretty good.
Yes, sir, it is.
It's looking pretty good where we're, in those mid to upper 40s and maybe even a couple of low 50s, but most importantly, a lot of sun. To kind of melt a lot of this this leftover snow, I guess, if you will, and just know that we are, in February. We still kind of have to get through February and March, and we know that both February and March can be kind of some of the most snowiest months of the year. So it will be nice to get rid of some of this stuff before we tend to perhaps get another snowfall or two before we kind of call it a year, regarding our snowfall, our winters, if you will. I have to say, when we talk about the snow, I'm really kind of disappointed in the streets in both Minneapolis and St. Paul on the plowing. It's just absolutely horrendous. A lot of these side streets have still got, chunks of ice. Cars can't technically park correct because there's still, 2 or 3 inches of snow off the curb, which is making it quite challenging in some cases when you have cars parked and you have emergency vehicles, such as ambulance, or even worse, fire trucks trying to get up and down, some of those streets. And we see this all the time, and we ask all the time, for them to do a little bit of a better job. I guess I'm going to ask again, please do a better job. But no.
Let's not wait till it freezes to plow it, right?
Absolutely, or just wait until it gets 40 or 50 and wait for it to melt, and things of that nature. Again, those cause of slick spots, and then we have those unfortunate fender benders.
Yes, sir.
As you kind of turn some of them curbs and things of that nature. But I'm sure that they're going to tell you that they're on top of it, and things are going to get better. But nevertheless, I'm sure that we all are excited and happy to see these upper 40s and these 50s to kind of get some of this stuff on out the way as we kind of lead into mid-February here, which is coming up, the All-Star game. Is it February 13th to the 15th, I believe it is?
Valentine's Day weekend.
Yes. And we cannot go any further and say happy early Valentine's Day to folks. We did have a special guest and Miss Angela, but she was unable to be here. She was going to have a whole presentation for us for Valentine's, but we're going to have to catch up with her next year.
Okay.
She's being a little bit of a Scrooge this year. No, we love you, Angela. I'm gonna hit you up on Facebook. But no, she's definitely a good friend of ours, and we always mess around with her. She's always welcome here whenever she gets ready. The Timberwolves, 33-22 right now in the West.
Yeah.
Sitting in sixth place. I think they have one. I think they have like one more game before the All-Star break. Maybe two. I can't remember. But excuse me. They have. They're doing really good. I mean, yeah, I think they're doing great. But they have definitely let a couple of games, get away from them. This year. And again, you think just because a team is, 16-36 and you're at home, that you're just kind of expected to win. And that was not necessarily the case the other day, maybe about a week ago now when they played the Pelicans. And the Pelicans kind of came into town and kind of snuck out of here with a win, which really kind of stings, when you kind of get to this time of the year. You're hoping to kind of be maybe in that fourth place or something like that there. And because of hiccups like that there, you kind of stay in that 6th or 7th seed.
Well, the key word being hope.
Well, we still have a whole second half of the season to go. And I'm certain that, they will make it to the playoffs, and Ant-Man and company will make sure whether they're in 7th place or 4th place or whatever, that they're ready to bring that smoke.
Yeah. Well, moving forward into that Super Bowl. Former Vikings quarterback.
See, you just had to say something about that, didn't you? See, we was going to skip right on over that, right?
Yeah, we can't move past that. I mean, for the organization to be considering what they're doing moving forward with the general manager and all that good stuff, you traded one of the great quarterbacks that you had to Seattle, who had led you, might I add, to a nice playoff situation that didn't work out in his favor, but he was ready to go the next year. I said it. He would be ready to go the next year. They didn't believe it. They traded him. The guy goes out to Seattle, and champagne for everybody. Right? I mean, who should be kicking themselves in the teeth? At this point, that.
Well, I will say this here is hats off to him, Sam Darnold, and Seattle. I still will stand by what I said. I do not think Filler believed that he was Minnesota's quarterback. I do believe that they should have let him go. I don't believe that J.J. McCarthy, was the answer regarding his replacement. I do believe that there was a mistake in that. And yes, Minnesota did have a turbulent season. Even though that we won our last 5 games, I believe it was.
And I recall Diggs also was from a former Vikings, playing on the other side of the ball in New England. So they had a couple players that they really let go on to do great things. Not sure what's going on in Minnesota.
Really? Really? We gonna? Hey, they say with friends like this over here, who needs an enemy, right?
But I will say, we are very happy to see New England make it because we want to support the AFC, of course, and extremely happy that they didn't surpass us in the greatest of all time teams in terms of Super Bowl rings. So we still remain tied with 6 championship rings, and we're rebuilding in Pittsburgh. So we're looking forward to possibly going into this next season with a chance to pick up ring number 7.
Okay. Well, with that being said, we're going in the next season looking up to pick up ring number 1. Well, I'm telling you, boy. You know what? I think this show's about to be over a little early, y'all. Oh, man. Well, with that being said, man, again, happy Valentine's, everybody. We want to thank all of our listening and viewing audience. Remember, we are here each and every Wednesday from 5 till 6-ish or whatever it is that time we kind of get in here. We like to keep it close to 5, but life has a way of what they say these days, lifing.
Yes.
And there's a lot of different things that Banks and I are out there in the community doing, on a daily basis to help, educate, enhance, and empower, and also just kind of keeping the community safe. And again, that's what, Let's Talk About It is truly about. But before we get into today's, conversation, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on over to you, brother, so then therefore you can go ahead and hit him with them groundkeeping rules in that famous backpack.
Yes. We thank everyone for joining us, as we always do. Remember to respect everyone's questions and answers. Remember, if you want to reach us, you can inbox us, call us, or text us, and we'll do our best to respond either on this show or the very next show. With that being said, we start, middle, and end every show with the backpack. And the backpack consists of making sure you have your driver's license and insurance with you before you get in the vehicle. Remember to place them above the visor. That way, if stopped by law enforcement, it won't be mistaken for a weapon. Remember to stay calm. Keep your hands where they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel. And as always make it on home to your loved ones. Same thing when you're walking down the street. Make shere you got your driver's license or ID where it's easily accessible. Remember to stay calm. Keep your hands where they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel. And as always make it on home to your loved ones. Also, with ICE still out and about, make sure you got your identification, such as a passport or things of that nature, to show that you are an American citizen or that you have proper citizenship. I know, we don't want to have to carry that information, but if it makes it that much easier for you guys to get screened and head on where you're going, keep it with you so you're prepared.
Absolutely. And I do want to just kind of piggyback on, excuse me, the gun situation, as far as when you're kind of coming in contact with law enforcement, things of that nature. I've seen this a lot, and I kind of want to clarify some things for some of the young folks. The 18 to 20-year-olds, yes, you can get a permit to carry, and it is extremely easy, to do so. I wish that they would make things just a little bit more challenging. I also wish that they would, kind of knock the 5-year down to maybe about 2 or 3, because there's just so many different things that can happen within 5 years, right? And you could potentially have individuals out here with a permit to carry that perhaps should not, have a permit to carry because of something that he or she may have kind of gotten into along the way. But nevertheless, with that being said, you can get your permit to carry 18, 19, 20 years of age, but you're still ineligible. Let me repeat that. You're still ineligible to be able to purchase a firearm. You're not able to purchase ammo. All right? So if you are looking to kind of go to a gun range and do some type of shooting, make sure that you have someone that's 21 years of age or older, with you, so then therefore they can kind of rent various weapons, and then you can shoot. Or maybe they have their own weapon, and then you can shoot their stuff.
We love that statue where you can purchase the firearm, but not the ammunition.
I'm sorry, which one is it? At 18 or 19?
Yeah.
Well, you can't even purchase. You can't purchase a weapon. You
can own one.
You can own one if it is what they called legally sold to you or gifted. That's another word that if it's gifted to you, but you still have to make sure that you are going to a appropriate gun store and making sure that you're doing that transfer legally. Because if you don't, it's still called or considered a straw purchase. And then the person who either gave it to you or sold it to you without going through the proper channels, and if you go out there and do something silly, that person can still be held liable.
And how about, are they required to go through any firearms training at that point?
Well, they had to go through some type of firearms training in order to get their permit to carry. Now here's the caveat to that is that there's still a lot of individuals, that are even 21 of age and beyond that get their permit to carry, but they still are not up to par, with their shooting. So what do I mean by that? It's easy. it's easy to get your permit to carry,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's not so easy to make sure that you're doing what you need to do in order to keep it, because there's a lot more steps, to be a positive and productive gun owner. So this is where I say that, don't just take your permit to carry class and then you're able to kind of go and purchase a weapon or whatever the case may be. Go to these gun ranges, whether that's, Stock and Barrel, whether that's Beale Gun Range or Burnsville Pistol Range, wherever it is that you want to go. Hopefully you have, 20 acres somewhere you can go outside and shoot, save yourself some bucks. But my point is make sure that you continue to enhance, your skills and your knowledge, pertaining to shooting, the art of shooting, and the knowledge of being a positive and productive gun owner, because the verbiage in the law, consistently kind of tweaks, and there's always one or two words, that kind of changes, and now all of a sudden it's being read, or it's being understood, differently. And you cannot, get into court, talking about you didn't know. Ignorance is not going to get you off the hot seat. So please make sure that you are doing your due diligence. There's one thing, or there's maybe two or three things here I want to say real quick before we kind of get into it, is that number one is, just because you can use deadly force doesn't mean that you should, right? If you find yourself in a potential use of force, situation, there's still certain things that you must do. And one of those things is making sure that you contact 911, to make sure you're getting some assistance there, because somebody may need some type of medical assistance or whatever the case may be, right? So again, do your due diligence. Keep up on the law, Minnesota state law, regarding all of that stuff. And again, if you ever have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me, and I can make sure that I can answer your questions or place you in the right direction to make sure that you stay that positive or productive gun owner.
And speaking of straw purchases, prayers go out to KG's family and the other family of the young folks that were killed by a firearm. There was a sentence headed down yesterday to the individual who was straw purchasing the firearms that led to some of those deaths.
Absolutely.
I was happy that they got him, but I did tell KG I was a little disappointed that we didn't push him a little harder to find out who he purchased to. I felt like that since we had a date on the time frame he purchased the gun, then maybe we could have looked in a little bit harder to, the cell phones that he acquired during that time frame, the data systems that were in place, and maybe see if there was possibility to trace it to conversations, text messages, etc. I just felt like that should have been something that they looked into, and I thought we could have pushed them a little bit harder on trying to get it in federal court versus state court, given the number of strawberry purchases that it was and the impact that it had on the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Because right around that time, that was falling right in line with those switches.
Yeah.
That was being put on the back of weapons and things of that nature too. And that's a whole other can of worms as far as modifications of weapons. But we're not going to kind of get too far off up into that. Check out my gun tip of the week, and you can kind of see or hear, some of that information pertaining to that. But again, happy early Valentine's Day, as all of you lovely couples out there are, going to be doing various different things, primarily spending all that good money, hard-earned money.
Yes.
They say that the average couple will spend somewhere between $180 to $220. Just kind of depending on a few things, but it can be higher, depending on, I guess, the female's taste.
Well, hopefully you're already in love and you're elevating that love that you already have, right? If you're just getting in love, ooh,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Well, break out the training wheels.
Absolutely. Well, I kind of wanted to kind of bring up a couple of topics, if you will, tonight. And some of this is kind of pertaining to the campaign. Some of it's kind of pertaining to ICE. Some of it's kind of pertaining to our current administration as far as Hennepin County Sheriff's Department, things of that nature. But I figure, who else better to ask than Joseph Banks?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
But the first thing is, man, is that there is a video that was just recently sent to me, and it's kind of interesting on how some of these things kind of come to me just right before we kind of come into the studio and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. But there was a young boy, I believe he was a Hispanic boy.
That 18 years old?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that he was arrested in the Hennepin County Government Center, and he was being arrested because he had 50 pounds.
Allegedly.
Mm-hmm. Of meth. And that there was a similar incident, mm-hmm. That took place in the Hennepin County Government Center, a few days or within a week prior. I guess I was not fully aware that these incidents had occurred.
Yeah, and I thought Hennepin County Attorney Mariotti put out a kind of a little blurb there that said that she felt like it was putting people who came to court at risk, that she thought it might cause witnesses not to want to come testify, and something to the fact of she felt as if it was causing more harm kind of than good, so to speak.
Right,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, that did happen. I think it like I said, it's not what you do, it's kind of how you do it. And I know that the deputies have decided that they're not getting involved in immigration enforcement. I don't know that possibly we couldn't have let him take care of his court matter, and if need be, have him step in the back and have these guys talk to him. And if they needed to make the arrest, then it might have been a more controlled environment. I think, like I say, I think you got to think about how far you consider aiding or enforcing immigration to be. But simply, having the guy step back, hey, we want to have a talk with this guy. We can afford you the opportunity to use a room that's, so you're not chasing people through the courthouse. And I think they would have been probably went a lot smoother that way.
Right.
But again, like I said, we don't know the actual communication piece, and it seems as if it's still quite not there, right?
Yeah.
And we'd like to see them just kind of communicating better with local law enforcement so that it does go a lot smoother.
Absolutely. Well, I agree with you 110%, which kind of leads me to, the current sheriff, is basically kind of stating that, she felt that she was kind of scapegoated, mm-hmm. During the immigration crackdown, mm-hmm. As if, she, didn't have enough information or whatever the case may be to kind of perhaps investigate certain things or take certain actions, and certain things and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly what she actually felt, if there was something that kind of came across her desk or whatever the case may be that made her feel like if she was being scapegoated. I would be very interested to get a little bit more content in that.
Yeah, not really sure on the whole kind of we're going to leave you holding the bag deal. But I think that the one thing we have to understand is we all have opinions on how we feel we could or should do it. But the reality of it is that this administration is the administration in charge right now. And as a result of that, we're going to have to find a way to work with them, whether you really want to or not. I always say err on the side of keeping people safe,
Absolutely.
right? If it takes us communicating a little bit more to ensure that it's safe and that the fear is not so present in people's face right away, then we got to work with our federal partners to to do that, make that happen. Like I say, we all agree that we're anti-crime. I think we all agree on that. No one wants to see crime
Yes.
in Hennepin County, and so that's something we all share in common. And I think if you have people in an environment that you believe possibly alleged to have commit crimes, you have a better option of doing what you got to do there. So I mean, there were some things she said, kind of like she's kind of had a few conversations with Tom Hoffman since he's been there, probably about 4 conversations, and there's some talk that she's considering whether or not she will begin to cooperate a little bit more with immigration. But she did say she's going to give it some serious thought and talk to the community a little bit more. And for me, it's something that we should have been doing from the start.
But she's definitely seemed to be making it clear that as of this point that she's not willing to change any of her policies and procedures pertaining to assisting ICE or helping ICE or being involved with any of the ICE activities.
Well, like I said, she did in her last comment say that she would be willing to kind of think about talking with him. But the bottom line of it is there's not a whole lot to think about, right? These guys have agreed to withdraw agents from the county if we're willing to concede to working with them a little more, right? The overall goal is to make sure that we keep the citizens safe and to bring down the fear. And I know you can't please everybody, but the greater good is to keep citizens safe, right? We don't make laws, we actually enforce those laws. And so if enforcing those laws by assisting in terms of, facilitating, making sure those agents are safe while doing the job, allowing them to enter the jail during situations where people have already been alleged to have commit crimes, or informing them as to whether or not this person is getting released and allowing them the 48 hours to come pick the people up. Fine. I mean, there's a whole host of things under 287G that you could work with immigration on. So the door is open there. And I think, she's entitled to her opinion. I know that a lot of people feel similar the way she does. But I think we have to get ourselves in a position where the first thing is that the agents aren't swamping our state with agents. And then once those are kind of rolled back, now we can kind of have these conversations about what it looks like going forward in fixing that. Now, I will say that when you talk immigration reform, well, we know there were some things that happened that neither one of us agreed that should have happened. But that's immigration reform. And so we need to do a good job with educating folks on what that process looks like so that they can get with legislators and maybe reform the laws that are controlling immigration. But for right now, we have to work with the laws we have on the books. And so I would behoove people to really start moving in a direction of getting in touch with attorneys that understand constitutional law and immigration law, and how they could reform it so that it is a situation that's a little more appeasable to the communities. But and that's where that has to go. Law enforcers are law enforcers. Your job is to keep people safe, keep the community safe, and in some instance, you may have to stop in even when those bad actors are law enforcement.
Absolutely. Well, can you take a couple of minutes, if you will, and kind of encourage the people, kind of educate the people, and enhance the people in regards to what it means to kind of lobby, and kind of write bills and kind of get those bills into law, and just kind of getting involved and how that has an impact, because the voice, the change, the power comes from the people.
It does. I mean, I give you a prime example. During the George Floyd riots, folks were all in the streets and the highways, kind of blocking the highways. They were upset, angry, shaking fists, but they didn't necessarily get with legislators to put a bill on the floor to get a law made in place. And as a result of that, legislators were able to put in place a law that made it illegal to stand in the highway, right? And after that law was in place, they were able to come out and arrest you and remove you from the highway based on the new law. So that's how powerful it is, right? You basically, it's an idea that you think that would be better than what's in place. You take it down to your legislators, your representatives, your congresspersons. They have some folks, partner up with them and write the language in there properly that meets the law standards, and they present it on the floor of Congress. And Congress and the Senate get a chance to vote on that process, and if they accept it, it becomes a law when the governor signs it, right? Or if it's a federal law, then it's the president. So these are important things, is to learn what that process looked like. And I will always say it that with the First Amendment, people out there protesting, that's a good thing to utilize. But understand that right is to draw attention to a wrong, a civil wrong, right? And then the second part of that is, after you got the attention, have a plan in place to follow through. Right. And that's what's not happening right in this situation. We're upset, or we're shaking the fist, we're angry, but we haven't moved the needle on the actual laws itself. And so if you want to see ICE agents out there without masks, and we do realize that some of that is with internal policy, but you have the ability to have those laws reformed that require them not to wear masks in certain circumstances, then you can organize and do that. But these are all things for the people to do.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that we've been kind of hearing a lot of lately is this 287G.
Yeah.
Right. Can you kind of educate the people as far as what is 280G and kind of how it works?
Yeah, 287G, to kind of sum it up, is basically allowing immigration and law enforcement to partner up, either at the sheriff level or local law enforcement level, to basically either train them on, being immigration agents, or of themselves, to extend the power, if you would, to those guys. It would train deputies on if they wanted to go out and actually do immigration enforcement themselves. It also would allow deputies to be trained inside to screen for immigrants who are here possibly illegally, and what that process looks like to get them prepared for, deportation or withdrawal or removal. And so it's a shared cost to some degree, right? A chunk of that cost is going to be footed by the sheriff department or the taxpayers. But, immigration has built in some incentives, and they have changed some incentives moving forward to try to help that. So what it looks like is basically those guys to get a chance to screen out the bad guys, with some assistance from the sheriff department. And I think in this particular package, they're even allowing an ask for, hey, if we got some folks that we're trying to deport but we don't have space, can we temporarily place them in your jails to do so? So there is some give and take there, but you have to really dig into it. But in the end, it's been frowned upon in the past because people thought, this is going to be some chance for people to be doing some racial disparities and some violation of civil rights. But you get a chance to monitor it a little bit closer. You are putting agents in an environment where they have a safe environment to take people into control because they're already in custody, versus, you having to pursue them where they are. Right. And so if we want to be in a position where we can facilitate those folks being screened without necessarily having to run down the street with rifles and things of that nature, we have to be willing to work on that.
Absolutely. Well, we've had the governor Walz, state that he's optimistic, in regards to the ICE agents' numbers being reduced. He's hopeful, that these agreements, these partnerships, I guess, if you will, certain things will kind of get ironed out, so then therefore they can kind of start to peel back and have more of a strategic, plan, and kind of a smoother outcome, for everybody, because I'm sure that we all agree, that there's been, a lot of trauma, that has been caused.
And I think what I personally would like to see going forward is just a little more clearer language in terms of law enforcement authority, so that there's not this confusion that local law enforcement don't have the authority when they see, agents committing crimes in their presence that violate the law, that are not necessarily a part of them performing their duties. And so there's a thin line there of those agents performing their lawful duties. And again, the key is they're performing their lawful duty, in the performance of their lawful duty. But when you see someone being injured, and it's not in the lawful process of doing that job, then you have a legal obligation and responsibility to step in and stop that. And so I do think that that's where a lot of the panic from the community came in, because to them, it just looks like the police, the deputies, aren't going to protect us, and we're going to get hurt, and they're not going to step in to stop it. And so we don't want to send that message that that's what the case is. And I know for the chief in Minneapolis, it's been a really hard battle, because he's been battling trying to keep the peace. He's been battling trying to keep the mayor happy and council happy. And at the same time, he's battling trying to keep, the community happy. But I just don't think that there's been enough clear information so that people clearly understand what that looks like, right, to balance that. And as a result of that, other law enforcement agencies in other jurisdictions throughout the United States have all kind of been like, ooh, we didn't really know what our footing was. And so this is when you have to take the time to get with, as a sheriff, you have to get with your county prosecutor, because that's technically your attorney to some degree, and get clarification on where you stand. Where's your footage on someone committing a crime that may be outside of the scope of them doing their job, and your authority to take some action. Now, remember, in any situation, we're always erring on the side of keeping people safe. So if in the process you do stop this officer who was appearing to be hurting someone, kudos to you, because the goal is to stop the action, right? We don't want to wait till you kill someone to jump in. We want to get in beforehand, right? And we still have a responsibility to do an investigation, even though it was part of a federal investigation or arrest. We still have a responsibility to make sure we account for what happens in our county, city, and state.
Absolutely.
Right? And so we have to be clear about that.
Absolutely. Well, you talk about that whole communication piece, kind of getting involved before it happens on the front end versus waiting until something happens. And, we kind of talked about that earlier today about, perhaps not being invited at the table,
right?
So to speak. But it didn't appear, as if they were so eager or willing to even kind of go to the table for whatever reason. But I do believe that we will all agree that if those individuals was at the table, whether you was invited or not, those communications, conversations would have happened. And then therefore we would have had a little bit more information and an input and impact on what the outcome looked like.
Right. I think the goal is to make sure that we're all looking at a resolution, right, of peace. And so those conversations needed to happen way ahead of time. I know that people feel as though this administration, there's some difficult things that they've done that people didn't agree with. However, you still got to go to the head table and ask questions. Hey, what's going on? Because, what is the real reasoning behind what's happening here? and how do we fix it? Because this is a fix that could have come a whole lot sooner than it did. It's just not about grandstanding and drawing a line in the sand and we're not going to work with you. The whole part of being a politician is finding ways to compromise, right?
Absolutely.
So that we're all getting a little of what we want in order to keep things safe and peaceful for everybody. And the government, since the dawn of its existence, has been designed that way so that, sometimes the Republicans will get what they want. Sometimes the Democrats will get what they want. Sometimes we'll have to meet in the middle to keep everyone happy, to make things work smoothly. But we have to communicate and we have to collaborate. We have to work together.
Absolutely. So when you talk about, peace, safety, compromise, collaborate, communication, right?
Yeah.
You being in the situation that you are right now as you are seeking election for Hennepin County Sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about this a lot. This question's always asked to you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Again, what is it that you would do or would have done or will do differently in the future to ensure, that we kind of keep peace and, we kind of keep safety and we're compromising to make sure that we're collaborating with whatever, partners, that we need to and have that lines of communication open to make sure that we have the input and impact pertaining to the outcome that we all deserve and desire.
Well, yeah, as a sheriff, it's a nonpartisan position. Even though it's an elected position, still nonpartisan. And I think we have to, if I was there, I would definitely be looking to have a conversation with the powers that be to make sure that we were all well informed. I think you have to start with your chief law enforcement officer through the Attorney General's office, Commissioner of Public Safety, talking with the governor, speaking with the folks from the federal level. We all need to be in the same room at the same time so we're all getting the same message. The first thing I would have said was, listen, if you're going to be in our community, not only do you need a way to communicate with us, but we need a way to communicate with you, because we can't have you in our community dialing 911 when you need assistance, right?
Right.
You should be able to key up a radio and be able to communicate directly with dispatch or local law enforcement. We need to know where you're going to be, and so we can better support your efforts and keep the community well informed in terms of safety. Now, I know there was some concern that, that they thought maybe law enforcement would leak the locations and things of that nature because of the obvious statements of we're not going to communicate, we're not going to be a part or collaborate. But the fact of the matter is that would have made life that much easier, because it would have been targeted enforcement versus sweeping enforcement, right? Mm-hmm. And it did put these guys in a position to kind of have to send their own guys down to kind of cover their back to do so. So I want to express the fact, one, that Border Patrol agents have a slightly different rule of engagement based on whatever their interdepartmental policies are, because most of the time they're dealing with issues at the border, right? They're counting on local law enforcement because they're not necessarily trained on inner city policing, right? And so that is why they're saying, hey, we need your help, because maybe we don't understand your city ordinances, maybe we don't know the lay of the land, maybe we don't understand urban policing, right? So you can give us guidance on that and support us on that. And that's the part that didn't happen. And we should never be in a situation where the cops are feeling afraid to do their job for fear of something happening, right? We need them to go out there with the clear understanding that doing your job in the best interest of the community will protect you as an officer, right? And so that's what we need to make sure they're doing. I think later down the road, Chief O'Brien from Minneapolis did come out and say he expects his guys to take action if they saw something that was unlawful in their presence. But that's kind of the message that should have been out there from day one. Right, we take that oath to uphold the law and protect people against both enemies, foreign and domestic. Right, and so I equate this to any law enforcement officer that moves outside of the realm of his job. Any officer should be prepared to arrest him if it means protecting that citizen. And I think both federal and local understand that any time that someone gives you an order that you know to be morally or criminally wrong, you have a legal obligation not to follow that order.
Right.
Right. And so I think, we just have to do a good job with getting this information out to agencies, to officers, to the community, so they can feel as though that their law enforcement is going to protect them. Because I thought that a lot of people were upset at the fact that it appeared as though they were getting arrested for civil disobedience. But when you have people shooting people and accosting them and nothing happens to them, it sends a clear message that we're not protecting you. And I know these guys were out there trying to do the best they could with the information that they had, but we had to do a better job.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that we are kind of rounding the corner, brother, for another fabulous show, but I have one last question for you.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you take a little drink because this is a doozy of a question.
Cool.
All right. Why vote for Joe?
Oh.
Why should the people vote for you?
I would say this. I'm asking the people to vote for me because it's definitely time for a change. Now, what do I bring uniquely? I bring a unique experience of both being a citizen, both being a former law enforcement police chief, but also being a regular Joe, right? And I think that's given me the unique round to see kind of what the people are experiencing, understanding what the law enforcement concept is, and being able to identify and solve problems in the community. I'm humble, but I will work with the people. I hear their cries. I hear their screams. I see what they want to have changed. And I have a plan in place. Once I'm in, that I'll put in place that will bring that to our communities, that peace, that safety, right? Like I said, I'm 100% anti-crime. I'm pro-cop, definitely pro-cop, pro-police, but I'm anti-crime. And we all want the crime to go away, both from the citizens and from any unlawful police treatment that's happening in our community. And so we can all get behind that and rally to keep our community safe, keep our schools safe, make sure our kids are safe, make sure our family members are safe, and to ensure that people are being treated properly throughout our county and our cities.
Absolutely. Well, really quick, as we're talking about, protecting our streets and things of that nature, both foreign and domestic. I want to send a special salute, to Chief Booker over there in the city of Bloomington. My guy over there doing a fabulous job.
He is.
He's doing a real fabulous job, and I know that sometimes positions such as his, can kind of be a little bit of a thankless job, or maybe you don't hear it enough, but you're hearing it from here, and let's talk about it, from Brother Banks and myself. Thank you, Chief Booker, in the city of Bloomington, Minnesota, for what you are doing over there. Your department, your city, and those that live, visit, and work there, and even travel through, should be proud of the work that you and your men and women do on a daily basis.
Yes, I think, Chief Booker and his agency does such a great job. The community loves him as the chief. They love the officers. They love the interaction that they get from the police officers. I hear nothing but great things about him. The thing I love about Chief Booker, too, is his transparency.
Yes.
Right? He calls people out. We need to be called out. He tells it exactly what's happening. He's not holding back, and he will make sure that as much information as he can get out legally possible, he does, and in a fast time turnaround. So kudos to him and the guys out there for what they're doing. And as you know, they've encountered some, moments of immigration enforcement out there too, but these guys have handled it with professionalism, and everybody liked the way it turned out.
Absolutely. Well, before we get out of here, I have one last question for you. Tell us a little bit about this upcoming fundraiser, February 16th.
Sure. So there's a fundraiser coming up on February the 16th at 10 o'clock in the morning. And what was that address down there again?
Oh, I will have to kind of look that up.
Let me just pull it up here real quick.
But it's February 10th. I'm sorry, February 16th at 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's going to be downtown Minneapolis from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And it's basically a conversation. So I will tell you this. You'll get a chance to come out, meet with us. It's not going to be a speech or anything like that there. You can ask some questions. But we're just going to be having some conversation about how we can do things better in Hennepin County and some of the things you want to see done. And so that's the important part, is that you get a chance to meet me, I get a chance to meet you, we get a chance to talk about some of the things you've encountered in Hennepin County and that you would like to see change moving forward. And even if you just want to talk about what you think has been done well, we can talk about that. But the goal is to give you an opportunity to meet me, have a conversation, and talk about some of the things you hope to see happening here in Hennepin County.
so that location is going to be at the Black Business Enterprise headquarters.
Yes.
And that's located at 1128 Harmon Place in downtown Minneapolis. Again, 1128 Harmon Place in downtown Minneapolis.
Suite 200.
Suite 200?
Mm-hmm.
February 16th from 10 a.m. until noon. Please also note that this is only one of many, community conversations, that we will be having throughout Hennepin County in general. And again, we look forward to having you guys come down and be a part of, so then therefore you can ask, those important questions, those hard questions, that is important to you. Because again, the way that we plan to move forward, it's going to involve you.
Right.
You, the community. We cannot, and we will say this again and again and again, we will not be able to move and have the type of outcome that we all deserve and desire without you, being involved. So again, we will kind of keep you informed, here at Let's Talk About It. We will definitely be posting that on our social media. You can definitely kind of go on to the Beeks webpage, which is Beeks, the number 4, sheriff.com, and you can get a list of information as far as where he's going to be, the times and locations, and then also just kind of have a chance to kind of call in and ask, important questions there and get real-time feedback and things of that nature. So again, we're here for you. Again, a vote for Beeks is a vote for change.
That's right, and we're going to be doing things a whole lot different. You'll see that. It's definitely time for a change. As you can see, things running as they were has not worked well. And so our goal is to give you some positive change, something that you can really be a part of, and come out here and help us build what this change looks like for you so that we can make Hennepin County safe again.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, brother, we are down to the end of another fabulous show of Let's Talk About It. We just had the big guy from CCX Create come on up in the house and give us that thumb like, hey, I don't know where you're going, but you got to get up out of here. Remember that we cannot do this alone. We cannot do this without you, and neither can CCX Create. So any nickels and dimes or quarters or dollars that you may have in your wallets and pocketbooks, please kind of go on to CCX Create's website and push that donate button. I guarantee they'd be more than happy to accept it. Yes. Again, if you want to come on down, be a part of our show, or CCX Create is always looking for new and dynamic shows, and you can have your own, and maybe I can be a guest on your show. With that being said, Brother Banks, we need to kind of get on up out of here before they turn out the lights.
Yes,
I'm going to go ahead and turn on over to you so you can hit them with that famous backpack.
Well, guys, we thank you all for coming out and tuning in and having that conversation with us. I see quite a few viewers on there. We appreciate you coming on there and interacting with us every week. We are really looking forward to Valentine's Day that's coming up and seeing you guys at our little conversation on the 16th. So
you can never go wrong. Never can go wrong with a dozen roses, fellas.
That's right. That's right. All right. So sending that loved one some roses and some candy. Get on top of that. All right. And hey, ladies. Guys like candy too. All right. With that being said, we start middle in every show with the backpack.
That backpack.
And that backpack consists of making sure you have your driver's license and insurance with you before you get in that vehicle. Remember to place them above the visor. That way, if stopped by law enforcement, it won't be mistaken for a weapon. Remember to stay calm. Keep your hands where they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel. And as always, make it on home to your loved ones. Same thing when walking down the street. Make sure you got your driver's license or ID where it's easily accessible. Remember to stay calm. Keep your hands where they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel. And as always, make it on home to your loved one. Remember those passports or whatever identification you have to show your citizenship. Make sure you got that in a nice, safe place that's easily accessible too. And remember, stay calm. Stay calm when dealing with law enforcement. And if something happens that you don't agree with, remember, it's always to deal with it in a safe environment once things are over. All right? Absolutely. With that being said, my name's Joe Banks.
And I'm Anthijuan Beeks.
And we just talked about it.
Peace.